headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
I mean, we were sitting here when the news came through that basically P&O were making a major announcement very shortly, and they've now suspended all of their services. And it was like, sorry, what's going on? We assumed they were going under. We assumed at first they were going to declare that they had to go into bankruptcy or something. That, you know, the travel business had crippled them, not enough customers, not enough money. But then, of course, it turns out they fired every single UK-based worker.
No, I mean, it's an absolute scandal. It really is appalling at so many levels. The idea that they think that they can just lay off 800 UK-based workers and have lined up replacements for the vast majority of them to march one group off, you know, potentially in handcuffs, and then replace them with cheaper agency workers, you know, leaving aside the whole issues around safety of operating ships, I'm absolutely convinced that it breaches UK employment law.
It must do, sure.
And I really am convinced, because it's about where's the place of work and under what jurisdiction. And these are UK workers primarily operating out of UK ports. The idea that they think they can be very clever and rely on contracts that might have been under some other jurisdiction, I just don't think will wash at all. And I come from the world of business. I cannot imagine the stupidity and idiotic thought processes going through the board of directors of P&O Ferries. This is, I mean, they would have planned this for weeks or months, and to think they could have got away with this and that it wouldn't be an absolute disaster at every level just defies. I mean, surely they would have, I mean, as we used to say about things in Downing Street, surely they would have war-gamed this. They'd be sitting in the board room talking about what could possibly happen. Could there be a backlash? Could there be a union kind of revolt and all of the things that are now happening? Surely they would have seen all that coming. Well, I suspect what they didn't see coming was the ability of the government to say this is unacceptable. And in the same way the government has imposed sanctions on Russian-related entities and things, actually the government can say that we're going to withdraw contracts from you from some of your other wholly owned subsidiaries of the Dubai Group, because, of course, it's all part of DP World. They've got huge ports. They're in ports in the UK, and there'll be all sorts of contracts with the government, and the government can make life very, very difficult for them indeed. And I think that they're going to be really quite shocked. Leaving aside the absolute PR disaster on the brand, and all of us customers, wherever there's a choice, if we're using one of their ferries, and if there's a choice of another company, I suspect people will use the choice. But there's another point here where I haven't checked, but there may well be crossings where actually either there isn't a choice or they've got contractual service obligations, because of course some of these ferry routes for the lorries and things actually is part of our, you know, it's part of our critical national infrastructure, keeping these routes open so that supply chains can flow. And I think so. There's a significant relationship with government at all levels, and I think they'll find themselves in completely the wrong side of this. I mean, it's one thing if the business is struggling, then, you know, the normal thing is you sit down with if you've got union members, you sit down with the unions and say, you know, we're going to have a restructuring. Or you might put it into receivership pending that. You know, there would be.
But they've had no conversation, as far as we can tell, with the union at all, right?
Apparently, no discussions with government, no discussions with unions, and given the size and profitability of other parts of the group, this is an extraordinary decision. You know, if you've got a loss-making group, you might say, well, we've either got to restructure or we'll sell it to someone else who wants to invest in it. And that's normal business.
And who are they
behavior.
Actually employing? Because I haven't seen the detail of that either. I mean, you may not know the answer to that, but I mean, they're supposedly employing foreign nationals, i.e. not people from Britain. So where would they be coming from?
I don't know. If you're taking on hundreds and hundreds of agency workers, the chances are they've come from all sorts of places. But, you know, there is a key issue about knowledge of ships, knowledge of operating systems for some of the staff, which
knowledge even just of the geography of the channel, because it's not an easy place to go backwards and forwards in. It's the busiest shipping lane in the world, right?
Indeed. And some of the other routes, and it may well be that some of the people have got that experience. We just don't know. But fundamentally, it is not allowed under UK law to lay someone off and then replace them with someone else in exactly the same role, even if you call it a different title.
Right.
That is just that is against the tenets of base. I mean, it's one of the most basic tenets of UK employment law, and I think some lawyers have clearly thought they're a bit of a bit of a smart aleck who's found a way around it. I think they're going to be in for a massive wake up. Well, this is an absolute PR disaster for DP World, for the group, and actually it goes right to the top of relations between the UK government and the UAE, actually.
Yes. Well, Dubai, where Boris Johnson has only just been. I mean, he turns up in Saudi Arabia 3 days after 81 people have been executed. As Jeremy said, they executed 3 people while he was there. He then goes to visit the Sheikh, presumably in Dubai, Sheikh Maktoum, who's the guy running this whole show, who's now decided to pull the rug from P&O Ferries.
Yes, in reality, he doesn't run the show. I mean...
well, it's his operation, though, isn't it?
Ultimately, it's under the ownership of the UAE, but he won't have known any of this. It's just such a big entity and so many different layers.
Yeah, but I mean the timing isn't great.
The timing is not good in terms of UK and UAE relations, for sure, and that's why I think actually it will be sorted out pretty sharpish. And I suspect that various people at the top of P&O Ferries and DP World may find themselves out on their ear. I really do.
Yeah.
And
presumably, I don't know much about the ferry business, but presumably there will be haulage companies, for example, that have maybe long-term contracts with P&O as they use the ferry service quite a lot, going backwards and forwards to Europe.
Oh, completely. Right? And it is part of our national infrastructure, and it's vital that these routes are kept open. And what's extraordinary is they were kept open by those workers throughout the whole COVID crisis under significant pressure. And it really is a kick in the teeth for the bosses just to say, right, thanks, you're out on your ear, leaving aside the appalling manner of the way in which they were notified over a sort of a short video clip Zoom call.
Yeah,
I mean the whole thing just at every level, it's exactly how not to do things.
Because the other
at the
thing
human
is,
level, in terms of empathy,
right?
In my view, in terms of employment law. PR disaster.
I mean, there's literally no upside to this at all, is there? I mean, I'm hearing from people in the Middle East that if they were involved with P&O and they're not now, they're actually rather happy about that because they don't want to be associated with this.
Oh, I mean, it's catastrophic in terms of the PR impact on the business, but of course it's also catastrophic for the employees concerned, the anxiety at a desperate time with all the cost of living concerns and the like, just to be told. Just like that, no notice is the worry, the anxiety, the fear for all of those employees, and indeed employees elsewhere in the business who must be thinking, well, am I next for the chop?
Yeah.
What's the overall state of the business? Is DP World going to just shut the whole thing down? And the government is quite possibly going to have to step in at some level.
Yes.
In order to stabilise this whole thing.
And will they be able to reinstate the workers or tell those workers that they can be reinstated? I mean, does the government have that kind of power?
Yes, well, that depends really over the next few days, just what happens and the speed at which DP World, I think, backtrack.
Yeah. It is extraordinary because if, for example, the government isn't able to stop something like this happening, we're going to be speaking later on to an employment lawyer, as I say, I mean, presumably any foreign-owned entity could then follow suit and just say, well, I'll tell you what, we might operate in Britain, but we're going to get rid of all the staff and we're going to bring in our own people.
Well, they could only do that if their contracts with the individual members of staff, members of the team, are contracts written under, which actually says it's under the law of XYZ jurisdiction. Whereas most employment contracts, it said at the end of the contract, in sort of the terms and conditions that most people don't read, it says, this contract is written under UK law or English law of England and Wales, and those laws apply in the event of a dispute. Here, it's possible they've tried to write it under someone else's jurisdiction. Most other companies, I doubt, have gone to that degree. There is an issue with shipping companies that operate across multi-jurisdiction. But again, I think sometimes lawyers can think themselves too clever, and sometimes it can come back and bite them. And I think this is definitely one of those.
Good talk.
Hot talk. Bold talk. Talk radio.
Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV.
The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.